with Bronny, I want to clarify one thing you just said, which is Rob and I did not give Bronny anything. Bronny has earned this.
I don't think so.
Bronny James isn't just another rookie. He's the son of a global icon, the heir to one of the biggest names in sports history. From the moment he touched a basketball, the world was watching, expecting greatness, expecting another LeBron. But here's the uncomfortable question almost no one wants to ask. Is Bronny James actually built for the NBA, or is his entire career just a carefully managed illusion? Before Bronny ever played a single professional minute, he was already a brand. ESPN highlights, national TV games in high school, tens of millions of social media followers. The hype around him was unlike anything a prospect of his level had ever seen. Fans weren't just expecting him to make the league, they were expecting him to dominate it. But behind the highlight reels was a reality that few wanted to acknowledge. Scouts often whispered that Bronny wasn't a top 5 prospect in his class, not even top 10. His ranking often hovered in the 30s and 40s. Solid, but nowhere near superstar levels. And yet, the spotlight stayed fixed on him. Why? Because his last name guaranteed attention. Bronny wasn't just playing basketball. He was carrying the weight of a narrative. The father and son dream of sharing an NBA court. But was it all smoke and mirrors? High school was promising, but inconsistent. Bronny had flashes of brilliance. Lockdown defense, smart passing, streaky three-point shooting. But he also had injuries and stretches where he simply disappeared from games. For every highlight dunk that went viral, there were quiet games where he barely made an impact. Then came college. At USC, expectations were sky high, but almost immediately things went off track. Bronny suffered a frightening health scare, a cardiac arrest that forced him to miss valuable time. When he returned, he wasn't the same prospect. His freshman year numbers were modest at best. A few points per game, shaky shooting, and limited flashes of playmaking. What made it worse was the comparison to other freshmen in his class. Players ranked around him were putting up bigger numbers, earning draft buzz, and climbing scouting boards. Bronny, meanwhile, was struggling to find his rhythm. For a regular player, that would have been enough to slide them out of the NBA conversation. But Bronny wasn't regular. He was the son of LeBron James. And that fact alone kept the NBA dream alive. When the draft came, controversy exploded. Bronny was projected by some as a second-rounder, others as undrafted. But the whispers were clear. His last name was doing more work than his game. Sure enough, he landed in the NBA. The story was irresistible. LeBron and Bronny, father and son, playing in the same league, possibly even the same team. It was history in the making. The PR value was massive, the headlines nonstop. But not everyone was buying it. Fans debated whether he truly earned that spot. Some said it was a feel-good story, others called it outright nepotism. Even within NBA circles, the whispers grew louder. If his name was Smith instead of James, would he even be here? And once the games began, the narrative collided with reality. Bronny's minutes were limited, his opportunities scarce, and when he did play, the numbers were brutal. Watching him on the floor, many fans started to wonder, is he really NBA ready, or just occupying a roster spot because of who his father is? Let's strip away the narratives and look at the raw numbers. Statistically, Bronny ranks near the absolute bottom of the league. His shooting percentages? Rock bottom. His efficiency rating? Among the worst ever recorded for a player with consistent minutes. In fact, when analysts broke down player efficiency ratings across NBA history, nearly 24,000 seasons in total, Bronny's rookie numbers placed him in the bottom 1%. That's not just below average. That's historically bad. Think about that for a moment. Out of thousands of players across decades of basketball, Bronny's rookie campaign put him among the weakest performances ever measured. And that was despite limited minutes, often in garbage time, when the pressure is lowest. But if you think that's the end of the story, the G League numbers made the picture even murkier. In the G League, Bronny had more freedom, more shots, more minutes, more chances to show what he could really do. And on paper, his scoring looked fine. 15, maybe 20 points some nights. But look closer and the cracks appear. His shooting percentages were underwhelming. His turnovers high, his consistency shaky. For every decent performance, there was a quiet game where he disappeared completely. And the thing about the G League is this. Guys drop 40 or 50 points on any given night. Players you've never heard of, players who barely crack NBA rotations can dominate in that environment. Take Isaiah Thomas, for example. At just 5 feet 9 inches, years removed from his All-Star days, he stepped into the G League and immediately dropped 40 points like it was nothing. Other fringe players have exploded for 45, even 50, in a league where defense is looser and minutes are wide open. Compared to them, Bronny looked ordinary. He wasn't the standout star. He wasn't dominating at a level that screamed NBA ready. Instead, he was just another guy. And in a league filled with hungry talent fighting for survival, being just another guy isn't good enough. Here's the truth most fans don't realize. To survive in the NBA, you don't have to be a superstar, but you do need one thing that sets you apart. One elite skill. It could be lights out shooting, lockdown defense, crazy athleticism, something that makes a coach say, yes, we need that on the floor. Bronny's problem? He doesn't have that one thing. He's a decent ball handler but not elite, a willing defender but undersized, a shooter but inconsistent. In scouting terms, he grades out as average to below average across the board. Contrast that with players like Duncan Robinson, who went undrafted but carved out a career as a lethal three-point shooter. Or Alex Caruso, another undrafted guard who turned relentless defense and hustle into a championship role. These guys weren't expected to last, but they found their niche and built a place for themselves. Bronny, on the other hand, is still searching for what makes him valuable at the highest level. And in a league where the 12th man often has a world-class specialty, being a D+ across the board simply isn't enough. Which brings us to the shadow looming over everything. LeBron James. Without his father, does Bronny even get drafted? Does he make an NBA roster at all? That question hangs over every discussion of his career. The media circus, the hype, the marketing. It all feeds into the narrative that Bronny belongs. But take away the last name, and what's left? The uncomfortable truth is that LeBron's presence may be both Bronny's biggest blessing and his biggest curse. On one hand, it opened the doors. On the other, it set expectations he may never be able to meet. And the pressure isn't just external. Imagine being 19 or 20 years old and constantly compared to the greatest player of his generation, your own father. Every missed shot, every turnover, every bad game doesn't just reflect on you. It becomes a headline tied to your family name. That kind of spotlight can break even the toughest competitors. So the question becomes, is Bronny carving out his own path, or is he trapped in a story written for him before he ever had a chance to decide? Bronny James entered the league with more attention than almost any rookie in history. He carried the hopes of a storyline that fans desperately wanted to see. Father and son, side by side on an NBA court. But strip away the narrative, the hype, and the last name, and you're left with a harsh reality. Statistically, he's one of the weakest players in the league. Skill-wise, he lacks the standout trait that every NBA role player needs. And moving forward, the question isn't whether Bronny will become a superstar. It's whether he can even carve out a legitimate role at all. And maybe the bigger question is this. What happens when LeBron retires? Does Bronny still hold a roster spot? Or does the dream collapse without the spotlight? In the end, Bronny James's biggest challenge isn't proving he belongs in the NBA. It's proving he belongs outside of his father's shadow. Until that happens, the debate over hype versus reality will never truly end.